Let me tell you about the day everything in our quiet little neighborhood turned upside down, because if you'd told me a federal crime scene would break out in the post office, I'd have said you were nuts. But that's exactly what happened. And I was right in the thick of it, watching as our HOA president's wild power trip finally crashed and burned in front of a dozen stunned witnesses and a stack of mail. It started on a Tuesday afternoon. Nothing special. Sunlight slanting through the dusty windows of the Cedar Key post office, a handful of neighbors in line for stamps, the low drone of the lights overhead, and that familiar mix of paper ink and government floor wax hanging in the air. I was chatting with my wife Jane, minding my own business, when the steel shutter crashed down with a noise like the end of the world. Suddenly we're locked in, a dozen of us, cut off from the outside world by a single decisive press of a button. Behind the counter stands Postmaster Henderson. The man's got the posture of someone who spent 30 years behind bulletproof glass, unflappable, steady, one hand near the button, the other holding a phone. And front and center, practically vibrating with outrage, is Karen Tillman. Lavender pantsuit, the whole 9 yards, with her dolly stacked with gray postal bins like she's making off with the crown jewels. Her face, usually plastered with some Stepford neighbor smile, is pinched and turning that particular shade of HOA pink that says, "I'm about to call your manager." "This is outrageous," she barks, but her eyes never leave Henderson, who isn't buying what she's selling, for a second. "Ma'am," he says, voice flat as a Midwestern highway, "I've asked you 3 times. Step away from the mail bin. That's federal property." He spells out the charges in case anyone's unclear: tampering, interfering, all federal offenses. Not that Karen cares. She squares her shoulders, drops the full HOA title like it's supposed to mean something, and claims she's here to make sure our mail is handled correctly. That's rich coming from her. For the last 2 months, she's turned herself into the neighborhood's self-appointed mail police. She started small, slapping violation stickers on any box left on a porch for more than 5 minutes. But it escalated quick. Packages vanished. Flyers she didn't approve disappeared. Birthday cards showed up a week late, slit open with a note taped on. She claimed it was about protecting property values. Everyone knew it was just about control, but nobody had figured out how to stop her. Until now. Because today, she took it a step too far. She showed up at the mail kiosk with her own bins, told Maria, the carrier, she'd be pre-sorting the neighborhood mail, and when Maria refused, Karen followed her right to the post office. She barged in and tried to physically seize the bins, waving her HOA status around like a badge. Henderson was having none of it. He calls the Postal Inspection Service, giving them the play-by-play. Karen's face just gets tighter, angrier. Some folks look scared, a few are just annoyed, but I'm taking it all in, partly for my own sanity, partly because I know Jane's got her phone out recording everything. That's Jane's style. Calm, focused. She's an EMT. Her steady hands in a crisis are legendary around here. I like receipts and order, but Jane, she's got nerves of steel. The room gets tense. Karen kicks at the dolly, making this speech about being a pillar of the community, and swears Henderson will regret this. I have to bite my tongue not to laugh. Bullying a federal employee in his own post office. That's a bold strategy, Cotton. Henderson hangs up, declares the building closed, and tells us nobody's leaving until the inspectors arrive. You could feel the power shift. Karen, used to running roughshod over people in HOA meetings, realizes she's not in Kansas anymore. The federal gears are turning, and she's standing right in the middle of them. That's when the mood really shifts. Mrs. Gable, quiet as a mouse, pipes up from the corner. "My husband's medicine, it was supposed to come today. It's in a small white cooler. Did you see it?" She's looking right at Karen's bins. Karen just waves her off. If it mattered, they'd plan better. I can't help myself. A pancreas doesn't run on your schedule. I say more to myself than to her. Jane lowers her phone. All EMT business now. What kind of medicine? Mrs. Gable says it's insulin specialty kind. Needs to stay cold. Needs to get home soon. Suddenly, we're not just talking about newsletters and junk mail. A man's health is on the line. Jane dials 911, requests EMS on standby. The room goes dead quiet except for Karen's heavy breathing and the hum of the lights. And there it is, the cooler half hidden in the mess of catalogs and Amazon boxes. Mrs. Gable almost cries with relief, but Karen unbelievably tries to play defense, blocking Henderson. This is evidence of mishandling. She's frantic, but Jane and Henderson are done playing. Jane says that cooler contains temperature-sensitive medication. A man's health depends on it. Henderson demands it again. The other folks in the post office aren't silent anymore. Give her the medicine, one says. What's wrong with you, says another. For a split second, I see Karen's armor crack. Maybe she realizes just how far she's pushed it. Then just as fast, she doubles down, sneering, insisting it's all being blown out of proportion. Eventually isn't good enough, I say finally, stepping forward. The clock's ticking, Karen. She's just Karen now, stripped of all her self-importance. Henderson tries one last time. The cooler now, or this gets much, much worse. Tension you could cut with a knife. Then Karen snaps. Not a slow unraveling, a full meltdown. She lunges for the outgoing mail bin, shoves the dolly at us. Henderson sidesteps, but poor Leo, a kid barely out of high school, takes the hit. She shoves him hard right into the wall of P.O. boxes. Assault on a federal employee. That's when it goes from bad to catastrophic. Jane's tending to Leo. Karen tries to run with the bin mail, spilling everywhere, Bill's birthday cards, chaos. I just plant my hand on the bin, steady as a boulder. Let go, Karen. She pulls shrieking, but I don't budge. Henderson's filming now, evidence stacking up. And then like a movie, sirens wail outside. Karen's shoulders slump. The fight drains out of her. She stares at the mess she's made, the people she's hurt, the reality settling over her like a lead blanket. The inspectors arrive, jackets crisp, eyes sharp. Henderson points her out, gives the rundown. She tried to take the mail. She assaulted my clerk. Calm as you please, Inspector Davies cuffs. Karen reads her rights. She doesn't protest. All that bluster gone. She's just a woman who made some spectacularly bad choices. But here's the twist. As the inspectors sort the evidence, they find forged mail hold forms, signed by a fake architectural review board. Turns out Karen's not just nosy, she's orchestrating a whole racket, secret P.O. box, fake shell company. She's intercepting legal notices and ballots for a shady land deal, all bankrolled by a developer, Marcus Thorne, who's been trying for years to buy up our community's greenbelt. It gets worse. She's laundering money, forging documents, and trying to sell out the very people she's supposed to serve. The only reason it all comes to light because she couldn't let go of her need for control, couldn't stand not being in charge. She crossed a line and got caught in her own web. The aftermath is something to see. Jane and I hand over everything. Videos, documents, a digital recorder from our timid but honest secretary, Arthur, who finally cracks and turns whistleblower. We lay it all out piece by piece at the annual HOA meeting. Karen, stone-faced, watches as her entire scheme is projected larger than life for everyone to see. When the video ends, the room explodes, questions, accusations, the board members resigning on the spot. Karen doesn't say a word, she just walks out, her reign finally blessedly over. Justice is swift and surgical. In federal court, the judge delivers a sentence that's a thing of beauty, restitution, finds a restraining order that keeps Karen 20 feet from any USPS mailbox for the next 5 years. And in the greatest twist of all her community service, assigned to the post office, where she spends her days sweeping floors under the watchful eye of Postmaster Henderson. The lesson that hit me hardest wasn't just about power or rules. It was about how easy it is for one person's ego to poison a whole community. But also how, with a little courage and a lot of receipts, ordinary folks can pull back the curtain and make things right. We didn't set out to be heroes. We just got tired of being pushed around and we stood our ground. The neighborhood's healing now. People wave at each other again. The mail, just ordinary letters, bills, postcards, feels safe, sacred even. There's an orange line around the mail kiosk, now 20 feet wide, a scar, and a reminder that order can be restored. Jane and I walk by, sometimes pick up our mail and feel the peace in the air. And that brings me to you. What do you think? Where's the line between leadership and tyranny? Did Karen get what she deserved, or was it too much? Ever face something like this yourself? Share your thoughts, your stories, your own brushes with justice or HOA madness in the comments. I want to hear it all. After all, sometimes the only thing standing between order and chaos is someone who refuses to look away.